Hey guys, welcome back to Blazing Confused, and today we're going to be breaking down top 10 UFC fights that need to happen this year. Now I know we're already a quarter of the way through the year, but these are some fights that I really do hope happen. If you guys have any fights that you want to see this year, let me know down below in the comment section. That being said, coming in at number 10 is Shawn O'Malley versus Marlon Cheeto Vera 2. Now the first fight ended very quickly in the first round. Marlon Vera was able to kick Shawn O'Malley in his nerves, so it sent him straight down. It wasn't a very fair fight in my opinion. Shawn O'Malley was winning the fight up until that point, and I think in the rematch he would definitely dominate Marlon Vera. I'm not saying it's a weakness in Marlon Vera's game, but Marlon Vera has struggled with strikers since losing to Shawn O'Malley. He had a close fight with Jose Aldo, and I felt like Jose Aldo was around dominating him everywhere in the fight, as well as Davy Grant, even though he did get the win over Davy Grant and it was a great fight. I felt like Marlon was struggling with some of Davy Grant's striking, and Davy Grant's not even a top 15 I don't think. So I do think Shawn O'Malley definitely has the edge in the fight. If you look at what Shawn O'Malley's done to all three of his opponents since losing to Marlon Vera, you look what he did to Julian Pereira, knocked him out in the first round. Thomas Almeida dominated him and knocked him out in the third round. Chris Moutinho was able to just, I think, land the most significant strikes in bantamweight history. So he's had three dominant performances. Marlon Vera is also coming on a two-fight streak. As I say, wins over Davy Grant, Frankie Edgar, which is just huge for his career. The fact that he's got a former champion and a legend of the sport on his resume. I say both guys are on incredible win streaks right now. Marlon Vera's also got a main event coming up against Rob Font, which will put him into the top 5. And I think if Shawn O'Malley, if he's able to get a guy like a Pedro Munoz or a Dominic Cruz and propel himself up in the rankings, then I definitely think we could see this fight later on in the year. But coming in at number 9 is Conor McGregor versus Nate Ds3. Now these guys have had some incredible fights. The first two fights were neck and neck. Obviously Nate Diaz got the victory in the first fight, submitted McGregor in the second round. The second fight was very close. A lot of people still think Nate Diaz won it to this day. I personally disagree. I think Conor McGregor won the first 3 rounds. He could have even won all 4 rounds. Obviously Nate Diaz was putting on a lot of pressure and landing some decent strikes, but nothing that was really hurting McGregor. Whereas if you look at the damage that McGregor did to Diaz, he knocked him down, I believe, 3 times, busted up his face, and even in the final round he was still giving it his all. So I think it's not as close as people make out, but it was a great performance from both men. I think now Conor McGregor's striking has got a lot sharper, a lot better. Obviously I know he's coming off a 2-fight losing streak to Poirier, but Poirier is one of the best boxers in the UFC, so there's no shame in sort of losing to a guy like that. And none of it has actually come from just strikes. A lot of it has been through kicks, so he's not necessarily been properly knocked out cold. I just think it's came from leg injuries and stuff like that. So it's been unfortunate the way McGregor has lost his last 2 fights, but I do believe that Nate Diaz is a great comeback fight for him. Nate Diaz is also on a 2-fight losing streak himself to Jorge Masvidal, Leon Edwards. So it's a great fight for both fighters just to get back on a win streak, get some credibility back in the UFC, prove to the UFC, prove to their fans that they are some of the biggest names in the sport. So as I say, great fight. I think it definitely could happen. Coming in number 8 is Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira 2. Now the first fight was incredibly close, had a very great first round from Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler was able to knock him down, and it even at one point looked like he was going to get the finish. I know a lot of people, including myself, thought the fight was over when he was able to land him with that bomb, a similar kind of punch he landed on Dan Hooker. Michael Chandler's had a very impressive run in the UFC so far. I know he's coming off a 2-fight losing streak over Oliveira and Justin Gaethje, but both fights have been incredibly close. Obviously I know Oliveira was able to knock him out in the second round in Michael Chandler, but I'd say that first round was tight-knit. Michael Chandler's fight with Justin Gaethje, I think, could have gone either way. He was landing some really good shots on Justin Gaethje. As I say, looked like he was going to put him away in the first round. So he's had a very, as I say, impressive run in the UFC. He's got a fight coming up with Tony Ferguson, which I believe takes place on May 7th on the Oliveira versus Gaethje fight card. I think getting a win over Tony Ferguson definitely puts him back into the top 5, possible title contention. If he's able to get through Tony Ferguson, which I do believe he will, that he can get a top 5 name, maybe like a Makhachev or someone like that, maybe even McGregor, as I discussed on my Return of Conor McGregor vid. But yeah, if you look at the run Oliveira's on, he's just finished Dustin Poirier in the 3rd round, got him in a rear naked choke, and the way he submitted Poirier was also the same finish he got in his UFC debut, which is just crazy. So both guys extremely talented, extremely tough. I think it would be a very exciting rematch. Could definitely potentially happen towards the end of the year, maybe November, December time. As I say, Michael Chandler gets through Tony Ferguson, gets a quick turnaround, maybe July, August time. I think that sets up the rematch quite well. But coming in at number 7 is Brandon Moreno versus Stevenson Figueiredo 4. Now these guys have had 3 great battles together. The first fight was a draw, the 2nd fight Moreno won, the 3rd fight Figueiredo won. So I think a 4th fight is inevitable between these two. I know a lot of fans want it, I want to see it. I think both guys have proved that they're 2 of the best in the division. Figueiredo's an absolute dog, he's got wins over Benavidez, now Moreno, who's a former champion. Moreno's got some good wins on his resume. He got a really impressive win over Brandon Royval, Josef Omega, who I believe beat Stevenson Figueiredo, so he's got some incredible wins on his resume. Stylistically, these guys could just fight forever and ever. They could probably have 10 fights and fans would still want more, and it would still be exciting. So I say very exciting 4th fight, and I do believe it would be the first quadrilogy in the UFC. So I think it would be really interesting fight to see whether the UFC will want to make it or they want to move forward with the division. I know Askarov and Kai Kara-France are meant to be fighting, I believe, next week. So maybe that could be a possible title contention, but I think with fan uproar and fan demand, I think the UFC will have no choice but to make this epic 4th fight. But coming in at number 6 is Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. I mean, Charles Oliveira is is the best lightweight on the planet right now, pound for pound, one of the best. If you look at the run he's on a 10-fight winning streak. As I say, he's got wins over Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, Kevin Lee. Yeah, he's got some great wins in his career, and he's been in the UFC for a very, very long time. Makhachev, he's on a 9-fight winning streak, coming off a very impressive win over Bobby Green. He's also got wins over Drew Dober. So both guys are on an impressive streak. Makhachev's been demanding a title fight for a long time now, which I do think he deserves. I know the UFC are looking to rebook his fight against Beneil Dariush, which I do think is the right call to make. He did turn down RDA, unfortunately. I think that could have been a great fight for Makhachev to take and really get some fan respect for getting a credible win on his resume. The Dariush fight is very exciting. It definitely puts him in a position to be fighting Oliveira and will give that fan support and demand to see him in a title fight next, because Beneil Dariush I think he's currently number 4 in the rankings. So Makhachev beats Dariush, he's in the top 3, he's right up there in title contention. A lot of people would say the Oliveira-Makhachev fight kind of resembles a Tony Ferguson-Khabib Nurmagomedov fight. I think there's a lot of similarities in it. You've got a very high-level jiu-jitsu fighter going up against a very tough grappler. So I do think it is that similar style matchup. I do think Oliveira would be victorious. If I had to go for an early prediction, I'm not going to deny the toughness and skill of Makhachev. He's got a great corner behind him. Obviously, he trains with Khabib. But I think Oliveira's jiu-jitsu is second to none. He's got the most submission wins in UFC history, which is absolutely insane. I think he's got the most performances bonuses in UFC history, so he's ahead of Cowboy Cerrone now. So it's a great stylistic fight. It's a great fight for the fighters to get each other's name on their resume. If Makhachev beats Oliveira, then he's beat one of the greatest lightweights on the planet. If Oliveira beats Makhachev, he's beat one of the hottest prospects in the UFC right now. So great win and great fight for both guys. Very exciting fight. Definitely needs to happen this year. Coming in at number 5, now I know this might be a bit of a surprise to some people, but it's Arnold Allen versus Alexander Volkanovski. Now I know Arnold Allen, he's got a tough fight ahead of him this weekend, going up against Dan Hooker, who's a true veteran and just a nitty-gritty fighter in a UFC that will take on any fighter, any way, any time. He's an absolute dog, so I'm not going to disregard Dan Hooker's ability to get the job done against Arnold Allen. But as a fellow Brit, I just got a root, and I do believe Arnold Allen is going to get it done against Dan Hooker. He's such a technical fighter, and a lot of people aren't really giving him too much credit for his win streak. But if you look at his last fight against Sodiq Yusuff, it was an absolutely excellent fight, a great display of striking and grappling. I mean, the kid's got it all. He's definitely a future champion in the featherweight division. If you look at Sodiq Yusuff's last fight, he just came over a great win over Alex Caceres, who was just on a 5-fight winning streak. So I mean, I do think a lot of people don't give Arnold Allen a lot of credit for the wins that he's had, but he's got some great names on there. Obviously, Hooker is, a good chance for him to get a big name and propel himself into title contention, which I do believe it will. But Alexander Volkanovski is a tough fighter. He's got the Korean Zombie in front of him next. But if you look at the resume of Volkanovski, he's got Holloway on there twice. He's got Chad Mendes on there. He's got Jose Aldo on there. He's got Brian Ortega on there. He's got a killer resume himself. I do think it's a tough fight for Arnold Allen, but I think Arnold Allen is more than capable of taking the belt off Volkanovski. He's tall. He's rangy. So I think it's a great fight for both men. If Volkanovski takes out Allen, he's taken out a hot British prospect. And then if Allen beats Volkanovski, he's just beat, pound for pound, one of the best fighters in the UFC. So, very exciting fight. Let me know what you guys think of this fight. But coming in at number 4 is Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. Now, Khamzat Chimaev is, to me, one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC right now. What can be said about him? He's had a dominant run so far. 4 fights, he's only absorbed 2 punches, which probably don't even count, as they were literally nothing. They were just him barely getting tapped, as he was dominating the opponent. So some could say he's absorbed, no strikes with the way he's had. Look at the way he dominated Li Jingliang. As I say, a lot of people don't give him credit for that win. Li Jingliang just beat Santiago Ponzinibbio, knocked him out in the first fight, and Santiago Ponzinibbio is a highly respected and hyped fighter coming from Argentina. So I do think he beat a very tough opponent in Li Jingliang. Obviously, Khamzat Chimaev's got Gilbert Burns in front of him right now, but I do think he's going to dispose of Gilbert quite quickly, and that's no disrespect to Gilbert. But, Gilbert had problems with Usman's jab, and if you look at what Chimaev did to Meerschaert, who's now on a 3-fight win streak, a 3-fight submission streak too. I mean, he beat some impressive names. So I do think Chimaev is a very tough matchup for Usman. I don't think Usman's quite faced a wrestler that will give him the same challenges. I don't think he's faced someone who's kind of similar size to him. I think Masvidal and Colby have been relatively small compared to Usman. He just seems physically a lot stronger and bigger than a lot of the dudes that he's fought so far. And I think Chimaev could definitely match that. He had a wrestling match against Jacko Manson not too long ago, which he was victorious in, but he came in at 190 pounds and he just looked jacked. He looked huge. He looked even bigger than Jacko Manson, who's a middleweight. So it's crazy the levels that Chimaev can go to. He's got potential of being a 2-weight world champion, which I know he wants to do, and I definitely believe he can do it. He gets through Gilbert Burns, that sets him up for a title fight with Usman after Leon gets his shot, or even maybe Leon is victorious. But if I'm just looking at it from a fan point of view, I want to see Chimaev versus Usman. I think it's more exciting. But that being said, even the Leon fight is insane. So a great fight for Chimaev. He beats Usman. He's the pound for pound best. Goes and beats Adesanya. Could be one of the greatest of all time. But coming in at number 3 is Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Now this is a fight that needs to happen. Both guys are the best of their weight classes. Both guys are 2 of the greatest fighters of all time. If you look at Jon Jones' resume, he's beat legends. He's beat Mauricio Rua, Rashad Evans. He's beat OSP. He's beat Gustafsson twice, Cormier twice. He's beat Chael Sonnen. He's beat Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida. He's beat so many legends, Dan Henderson. The list goes on for the level of opponents that Jon Jones has just dominated throughout his career. You know, the youngest UFC champion, Miocic, he's beaten Junior Dos Santos, Fabricio Verdum. He's got a win over Ngannou, beat Cormier twice. I mean, his resume speaks for itself. He's fought dogs his entire UFC career, and I think he's got something like 5 heavyweight title defenses, and which is just crazy. Yeah, he's 2 dominant champions in their weight classes. There's no doubt when this fight happens, could potentially be a fight of the year contender. Miocic is the heart of gold. Jones is very methodical, very tactical. I know, unfortunately, Jon Jones has a lot of dirt going on into this fight. You know, he's had a lot of allegations and things against him, and I'm not too happy with it. I don't agree with some of the things that he's done. But from a fighter point of view, from a fan point of view, I want to see him get back in the octagon. I want to see him getting back into his winning ways. I want to see him champion again. He's an exciting fighter. You can't deny that he is the greatest of all time. I know a lot of people probably put GSP and Anderson Silva, but if you just look at the opponents Jon Jones has faced, there's no competition there, in my opinion. You know, you can't really credit what he does outside the octagon. You can only look at what he does in the octagon, and I think that's what matters most. But coming in at number 2 is Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. Now, I know this might be a bit of a weird one, considering Alex Pereira isn't even in the top 10 yet, but if you bear with me, guys, I think with Alex Pereira's performance over Bruno Silva, who I believe was on a 6-fight winning streak, a 6-fight finishing streak, I think it definitely sets him up for a top 10 opponent. You know, I made a video on Darren Till. Maybe Pereira should fight Darren Till next. So I think if Pereira can fight, you know, a top 10 guy, then that propels him into the top 5, and he gets the Adesanya title fight maybe towards the end of the year. I think the fight could definitely happen. I think Israel Adesanya would definitely be open to it. I know he wants to get that fight back. I know he's talked about and acknowledged Alex Pereira's run in the UFC so far. I know Alex, as I say, I think he's only had 2 fights, but it's been 2 great fights. In my opinion, he definitely deserves to be in the top end of the division. His kickboxing is second to none. You know, even a guy like Bruno Silva, who's a knockout artist, he was having problems with Alex Pereira, and Pereira was just sticking him with a jab. Got a nice front body kick that he was using to keep Bruno Silva at bay. Even in the clinch, he seemed like he was getting better. Like Alex Pereira seemed very well rounded with his Muay Thai and his kickboxing. So I think the more he fights and fights higher level competition, I think the more he'll develop as a fighter. Then when it comes to fighting Adesanya towards the end of the year, I think he could present some real tough challenges to Izzy. And I know Izzy's got Chandler coming up, so I mean, I know Israel also wants to be active, so this is a fight that needs to happen. It is a great fight for Adesanya to get that win back over him. It's a great fight for Pereira to prove to the world that he is the best kickboxer, and maybe even one of the best middleweights of all time. Alex Pereira is also a former Glory kickboxing middleweight champion and light heavyweight champion, so he's also got double champ status written all over him. As I say, great stylistic fight. There's no doubt that this would be an extremely exciting fight. But coming in at number 1 is Dustin Poirier versus Colby Covington. Now, similar to the Masvidal versus Covington fight, there's a lot of beef and a lot of heat going into this one. And I know Poirier's chatted some right malarkey about not wanting to fight Covington. He's only going to fight him on the street. Well, I don't believe that for a second. I think if the UFC comes to Poirier with the right check, the right amount of money, I reckon Poirier will definitely be like, yep, okay. At the end of the day, Poirier's got to look at it like this. If he beats Covington and he really wants to move up to welterweight like he's talking about, then that puts him in the top 3 in the world. So that puts him in title contention for, you know, potentially Usman or Chimaev or Leon, whoever's champion at that time. That puts him in a great position in the division, and he'll just blow up from there. As for Covington, doesn't really do a whole lot for Covington other than, I think, generate him a lot of money and publicity, but it's a fight that needs to happen. As I say, the bad bloods, I think it's a really exciting fight. There's no doubt that every time Covington fights, it's exciting, whether you want to say, oh, his fighting style is boring or not. I really disagree. I think Covington's got a very great, entertaining fighting style. You know, he just puts on a ton of pressure, a ton of volume, tons of takedowns. He's a complete, well-rounded fighter. Even his performance against Masvidal, I thought was a great win. He was able to do things to Masvidal that Usman struggled with in the first fight. Obviously, you can't discredit the second fight that Usman had with Masvidal. He knocked him out cold, which was a sensational win. But, you know, if there's anything Compton has proved, he is up there with Usman. You know, Usman and Compton are two of the elite of the division. So I do think Poirier is a very he's a very credible opponent for Compton. It'll be a good win for Compton because Dustin Poirier is a good name. I don't think it does much for him in the rankings. But yeah, Compton's no easy test for Poirier too. Poirier, he definitely does struggle with high volume fights. If you look at Khabib was just able to walk him down and grapple him and get him to the ground, tire him out. Same goes with Oliveira. I do think Poirier does run out of gas. I'm not saying fairly quickly, but the more pressure and, you know, the more volume that is put, I think that the more he just sort of gives in a little bit. So I think Covington would definitely look to implement his style and his way of fighting onto Poirier, and I think it would make for a very grueling, scrappy 5-rounder. It would really show a lot of, you know, Poirier's heart and, you know, what he wants to do left in the UFC. You know, does he want to be welterweight champion? Does he want to be in there with Wolves again, with as I say, the likes of Colby, Chimaev, Leon, Usman? You know, there's no doubt moving up to welterweight won't be an easy task for him. You know, it's one of the most competitive divisions in the UFC right now. But stylistically, it's a great fight. Poirier's got some great boxing. He's got great power, which even Compton has struggled with in the past. You know, he was dropped by Usman several times throughout their fights. He was dropped by even Masvidal recently in the 4th round in their fight. So I do think Covington does struggle with very powerful strikers, and I think Poirier definitely presents a lot of problems. But I think they match each other very well. They're both, you know, very, very hard tasks for each other and could present, you know, a fight of the year. There's never a time where Poirier's not in a great fight, so there's no doubt this would be another amazing fight added to his resume, added to his legacy, especially if he's able to get the win. But I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. As I say, if there's any fights on here that you didn't see and you want to see, then let me know. It'd be really cool. But stay tuned for more UFC content coming. So UFC London takes place tomorrow, so there's no doubt I'm going to be doing a breakdown and reaction to that vid. I can't wait to break down some of the fights. It's going to be really cool to see how the event unfolds. You know, I'm really rooting for Tom. I think he's going to get it done. I'm rooting for Arnold. I believe he's going to get it done. The Paul Craig versus Nikita Krylov fight. I think that fight is on the prelims, which is just mind-blowing to me. That should be the main card fight. So please guys, stay tuned for the Nikita Krylov and Paul Craig fight. Make sure you're watching that fight because that will be an absolute banger. But as I say, hope you enjoyed the video. Stay blazed.